What's up, everybody? CHM Carnivores here, and today I want to talk about the number one plant that I personally feel, my opinion, that every grower should have in their collection, and furthermore, what every new grower should have in their collection. And I'll tell you, it's gonna shock you. It's not what you think. Stay tuned. What's up, everybody? CHM Carnivores, and like I talked about in the introduction, I'm gonna talk today about what is the one plant, the number one plant I think that every grower should have in their collection, and to further that point, the number one plant that every new grower should have in their collection. And it will shock you what I'm going to tell you. Now, normally you see these big box stores, they sell Nepenthes, Alata, ventrata, and maybe even some Miranda, and on a very rare occasion, like something like a ventricosa. Now, all of these plants are very easy growing. They're all wonderful plants. Ventrata, is, while it's a little bland, it's a beautiful in its own right, and it has its place. But the one I'm going to talk about is Nepenthes. You ready? Truncata. Now, a lot of people might think, wait a minute, Truncata, that seems like one of those plants that is made for growers. But I'll tell you why I feel that this is one of the most forgiving plants, and why it makes a great plant for those just getting into the hobby, and just a great all-around centerpiece. Now, I got this one right here I'm going to show you. So this is one of my bigger Truncatas. This is Truncata JB by Patient. And I've had this in my care for probably, I don't know, maybe a year, 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year. Here is the smaller version of that one that I got maybe 4 months ago. And so these will grow into this, and much, much larger. Now, there's a couple things before I get into how to grow Truncata that you need to think about when you are growing these plants. And then I'll talk about why I think they're great beginner plants. So Truncata do get enormous. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This plant in itself will grow 3-4 feet wide around. So you need to keep that in mind when planning on having this. However, that is one of the very few drawbacks to this plant. I have noticed, in my opinion, that these plants are far more hardy than even a ventrata or a Miranda. Ventrata or Miranda will stick around longer if abused for quite some time, but they are a lot more sensitive to that miscare than, say, a Truncata. Now, my hope is that everybody is caring for their plants appropriately, and in my job, I believe, is to show you how to do just that. But I do think that people sell themselves short by not collecting the Truncata. For instance, the Truncata is very, very epiphytic. Now, a lot of these plants are lithophytes. They grow on rocks. They're epiphytes. They grow in trees. The Truncata sort of sets that benchmark. It will grow up high in the little notches of the trees, sometimes with very little to no soil at all, and it will do just fine. Secondly, if you'll notice, the Truncata leaves are very, very thick. So they are in a lot of ways almost like the succulents of Nepenthes. So they can withstand drought tolerance a lot better than the majority of your plants, including a Miranda or a ventricosa or a ventrata. Now, this is going to be a very bold statement, and maybe it's just me and my growing habits, but I actually find the Truncata to be an easier grower than, yes, even the famed ventricosa. As far as care, they require almost no fuss. You can just set it and forget it, and just make sure you water it and keep the soil at least a little bit moist. But like I said, they will do just fine going through a little bit more of a dry spell, as you will some of your normal, quote unquote, normal everyday Nepenthes. Now, the cool thing about Truncata is that they put on these amazing, amazing leaf jumps. They are a slower growing Nepenthes, so they do require a little bit of patience, but they do put on massive leaf jumps. So if you can see here, the rosette of this plant is not that many leaves, and yet it is a big, big, big plant. And that is because each leaf will almost be, especially when it's healthy, almost the same size as the plant itself, and it will continue to do that. Now, I've heard all of these horror stories about Truncata being super, super, super slow growing. I gotta tell you, in my experience, I've got a ton of them. I don't find them to be appreciably slower growing than any other plant Obviously, they're a little slower, but not to the point where I notice. I get a couple of leaves a month, and that sounds like, holy cow, that's not that much. But again, remember, the leaves are getting absolutely massive. Now, I've also noticed that these plants are very, very tolerant, or resistant rather, to, hold on, I got some sphagnum moss in my, very, very resistant to pests. As a matter of fact, I find these even more resistant to pests than, let's say, ventricosa, ventrata, Miranda. And the reason for that is because their leaves, even at a very young age, are very thick and leathery. Now, insect pests like thrip mites, they like to prey on those really fresh, really soft, malleable leaves, and that's where you get a lot of the damage. Your Truncata is not like that. It's a tank of a plant. It's got these very, very thick leaves from the very beginning, and they will take care. Now, for the next point, you want to go bang for your buck. Mirandas can produce pitchers up to a foot tall, and they're beautiful. Ventratas, 4 to 5, 6 inches, maybe at most. These Truncatas will produce enormous, enormous pitchers. And so this is a very, very, very small pitcher to this one. This one's going to have over a foot, foot and a half tall pitcher, and they're going to be enormous. So for bang for your buck, you can't go wrong with the Truncata. And here is the best part. Truncatas can be grown indoors at home humidity levels. They will take a little bit of time to get used to it, but once they do, they will give you just results just like this that I grow here in my grow tent and the comfort of your home and a windowsill. They will do just fine. So Mirandas, ventratas, of course, will do just fine as well. But if you're looking for something a little bit more exotic and something that has a little bit more of a showstopper quality, Truncata would be the one. So I've talked a lot about Truncatas. They are, without, here, my apologies. Try not to squish that picture. I've talked a lot about them in the past. They are my #1 favorite Nepenthes. I'm learning just with you guys as we go through this. I will tell you that I wish I had not steered away from them as long as I had, because of the negative publicity out there about them being sort of one of those more niche sort of plants. And no means are they a niche plant. I think that they will do just fine in any collection. First thing off the bat, if you have any questions about them, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to be able to help you. Put a comment in there. I'll be glad to help you through how to grow them. Very easy growing, like I said. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a short one. Remember, if you're just getting into the Nepenthes world, or if you are in it and don't have one of these yet, I highly recommend that you get one of these in your collection. Take care, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. See you soon.